Here now with more on the 2016 race is Republican strategist Rick Davis. He was John McCain's campaign manager in 2008. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So how much could Sarah Palin's endorsement help Trump in Iowa?
Well, Trump's been trying to pivot into recruiting some of this evangelical support that's coming off of Ben Carson's campaign that's sort of dwindling down slowly. And this is a real gambit, right? Sarah Palin has a great grip within the Iowa evangelical movement, and he's playing the big gun. I mean, if this can translate into evangelical support or even just a look for the next couple of days from those voters, he's dominated the day.
So that's the effect potentially in Iowa. But what about beyond Iowa? I mean, what does the Sarah Palin endorsement do for Donald Trump when you're talking about other states?
Well, it does put a bit of a chill on sort of mainstream voters who maybe were looking at Donald and saying, you know, if it's a choice between Cruz and Trump, Trump doesn't look so bad. You know, he's a deal maker. We can cut deals with him. And all of a sudden, he looks very ideological. And Sarah is, love her or hate her, she's a bit of an anathema to the mainstream, right? That's her enemy in politics. She campaigns against them. She did a good job yesterday articulating that. And so I think it puts a chill on that movement where they're saying, well, our candidates like Bush and Rubio and Christie, they haven't done well, right? We don't see them competing now. And so if the choice is between Cruz and Trump, we go Trump. Right now, today, they're opening up their newspaper saying, well, maybe I'll think that through a bit.
Well, speaking of Cruz, rough day for him yesterday. First, Sarah Palin came out endorsing Trump, and then Iowa's governor saying that he wants to see Cruz defeated. How significant is that 12 days before the Iowa caucuses?
That's a bad day. I mean, as you said, you don't want to wake up to Terry Branstad saying bad things about you. He's a god in Iowa. And so I think that when you look at sort of each day now between today and the caucuses or today and the New Hampshire primary, in a campaign, you're sitting around going, I have to win today. And then I'll win tomorrow. And if I get enough W's in the column, more W's than L's, losses, each day, I can win, right? Because they're neck and neck between Cruz and Trump. And definitely yesterday was a win for Trump and a loss day for Cruz.
You mentioned some of the other, quote-unquote, establishment candidates. I mean, at this point, it's so fascinating to see what's been happening because after the debates, there'll be a little bit of buzz around somebody and then nothing. And then you don't hear anything for a few days until perhaps there's a little bit of news that's made. But when you look at the alternatives to Cruz and Trump, who stands out at this point?
Well, I think exactly what you just said, I think, typifies the Rubio campaign, right? He goes to these debates, and he's great in these debates. I mean, he really is articulate, he's smooth, he can put his ideas together in a very cogent way, and his ideas are baseline establishment, mainstream Republican, right? So you would think that he would emerge. But then he leaves these debates, and you never hear from him. You didn't hear from him yesterday. You didn't hear from him the day before yesterday. He had a great debate, on last week, and then disappears. And I think it's a fundamental problem with this campaign where he's out there performing at a very high level, but his campaign's not, right? They're not putting him in places where he can be seen by voters. And I think that's indicative of the rest of the establishment. They're just having trouble, breaking through the Trump fog, right? Because when Donald Trump's on the stump, he says the most outrageous things that the media can't help but report. And so these guys fall off the list of things that make the front page of the newspapers or, the television stories.
Well, when it comes to Rubio, can he survive if he doesn't win one of the first few caucuses or primaries out there?
Yeah, I'm one of the very few people who think that the structure of the schedule this year dictates a different outcome. So you have the traditional Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and I don't think any of the establishment candidates can win where they are today, any of those three states. But then what happens is the party this time, and it's never done this before, has said the next 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of March, are all proportional states. And so what that means is you have, I think, almost 10 states that are going to vote in the South, Southeast, and they're not going to be any winners and losers. They're going to be, I won delegates in this congressional district, you won them in that congressional district. And it sort of slows things down, right? And it takes the momentum that you've had from Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina and just tamps it down. And then it's Florida, the next winner-take-all state that everyone's going to be paying attention to. If Rubio or Bush can win that state, I think it resets the campaign and says, okay, it's a three-way race. Establishment candidate, Rubio or Bush. Christie, I guess, too, could be in that mix. I think that you have the evangelical support around Cruz that'll still be there, and the outsider vote for Trump. And that's a three-way lane. And at that stage, I think it starts all over again.
I just have to ask one question. What was it like for you when you saw Sarah Palin out there?
She looked great.
I mean, you have some knowledge of how she operates, and certainly she was on the attack for
Sure.
Donald Trump.
She's always on the attack, right? I mean, she leans in, she never leans back.
Yeah, but for Donald Trump, you know, someone who is used to kind of fighting his own battles and being very direct and not shying away, it was interesting to watch him.
His body language?
Watch
he
her.
had no
Did you
clue
read
what to
him?
do with himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty entertaining to see him quiet for a change.
Yeah, I mean, so could we perhaps be seeing that more and more now that he's got her endorsement and she is out there fighting the fights? Is this an opportunity for him to perhaps try and sit back and demonstrate a little bit of control and reserve, perhaps?
I think it's more like when you have a tornado in the room, just hold on and, you know, and hope for the best. And Sarah dominates a room, right? I mean, she's the kind of person who has this effusive personality that she's just going to ignite whatever is going on that day. And she did yesterday. I mean, you can see the media today, you know, front page of every newspaper in the country is the story about this endorsement. Part of what I think worked so well for him is that he doesn't really do much in the way of endorsements. I mean, I think his attitude is, you know, why do I need endorsements from politicians? I'm bigger than they are, right? So
he said yesterday he didn't really like endorsements, although he was happy to get the endorsement of John Wayne's daughter as well as of
exactly. And so now I think you're entering a much more tactical campaign where it's like, well, what will help me today dominate coverage? What will help me reach out to this community of voters? And I think he's being smart. And obviously, I think it worked yesterday.
All right, Rick Davis, thank you so much.
Thank you.